You are now joining Children of the Watch.
That's right. It's the #1 podcast in the galaxy for all things Star Wars television. I'm your host, Alex Maxwell, and joining me as always is
Mac Lacey. We are here for part 2 of our Attack of the Clones breakdown. This is all in anticipation for the Book of Boba Fett. We're going back to where it all started for young Boba. As a child, we're gonna revisit his childhood and see what traumas and everything will inform the show in December. So.
That's exactly right. So if you missed our first part of our Attack of the Clones breakdown, you can find it on any podcast app that you use. We're pretty much on all of them. And then we're also on YouTube, which you can find in the show notes as well. And you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at COT Watch. Because if you do, you know that on May 4th, we had a special live stream only for the YouTube, just hanging out, talking about maybe what Thrawn was doing or is going to do in the live action TV shows. So you can find that exclusively on YouTube. We missed Mac. There were severe storms that kind of kept him from being on the show, but we had a lot of fun.
There was a master fiber line that got snipped somewhere, and so all of Tuscaloosa was out for my ISP. So yeah. It was just hard. It was difficult that night, but I'm sure you held it down, and I'll catch the next one. So
yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time. So sometimes we'll do stuff like that. So make sure you're following us on Instagram and Twitter at COT Watch, so you can be up to date on that. But today we are all about part 2 of Attack of the Clones, like Max said. But before we jump into it, we did want to play a voicemail hotline. We got a voicemail, and it's the only one this week, so we're only going to play one. But you can call into the voicemail hotline and possibly make it on the podcast. So you can talk about Attack of the Clones. Maybe you want to bring something up, a theory, a thought about The Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, any live action Star Wars TV show coming out. You can call our voicemail hotline. And our voicemail hotline is, Mac,
205-259-6675. That's one more time, 205-259-6675. Yeah, definitely call in, and we'll love to hear from you. That's one of the most fun things that we do with the show. So call in and you can participate.
Absolutely. So I think we'll get to our voicemail hotline that we have.
Let's do it.
Let's get to the voicemail. Cool.
Hey, Alex and Mac, how's it going? It's Jason from Southern California. And gotta say, I just love the show, man. So stoked on it. Thank you for all you guys do. It makes Star Wars so much more fun listening to you guys. I've been listening for the last 2 years, and quick funny story, I never miss an episode, and I had this kind of preconception idea of what you guys looked like just from listening to you for the last 2 years. And then my mind just was blown when you went to YouTube and you told us to check out YouTube so you can see what you got, see it online. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that looks nothing like, so here's what it was. I had in my mind that you guys, that Alex looked like Frank Whaley for some reason, the guy that was in Pulp Fiction, that was in the scene what a tasty burger. That guy that Samuel Jackson was holding a gun at and asked if he could have a drink of his drink to wash his tasty burger down. The guy that was on the couch. I thought that's what Alex looked like, and a younger version of Alex Whaley. Google him. And I just always thought he came in with this long sleeve, Oxford button up, kind of rolled up sleeves, tucked in with a braided belt, and he just kind of broke down each episode, and it was just hilarious and amazing and awesome. And then I thought Mac, for some reason, looked kind of like a tall, younger Napoleon Dynamite type guy. And so when I checked on YouTube, I was way off. You guys are really cool dudes. You're punk rockers and cool rock band guys. And it just totally blew my mind. So I just wanted to share that with you. I think it's hilarious. And also, your episode 2 breakdown was just spot on and so funny. I think all the same things. It's still Star Wars. I still love it. But episode 2 is definitely the weakest one. And that whole scene about I like sand and or I don't like sand that is a scene that my whole family, I have 4 kids, and my wife and I, we just have made more fun of that scene and have said those lines to each other 1,000 times as the Predator creepy Anakin would. So pretty funny. Anyway, thanks for all you guys do. And hope I didn't offend you about what I thought you looked like, but I just thought it was kind of funny, and I thought you should know. Talk to you later. Bye.
Look at the big brain on Brett. That's who he thought you looked like. Brett from Pulp Fiction.
Well, he thought you looked like Napoleon Dynamite. So
hey, I'll take it. I'll take it. I'd rather look like Napoleon Dynamite than Brett from Pulp Fiction, probably. At least he's got like a look, right? It's a singular aesthetic.
I don't know how to take that, like, as an insult. Like, do we sound that way? I guess, but
we sound like big old nerds. I guess. I mean, we are.
But then when he saw us, he saw punk rock. I think you are definitely punk rock. I don't know if I'm technically punk rock, but
hey, punk is an attitude more than a musical style or aesthetic. So, you know.
Yeah, but the hair doesn't hurt.
I don't have particularly punk hair. I used to have a mohawk. When you met me, I had like a foot long mohawk.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So that was the case. But yeah, but I'm glad that somebody is getting some comedic value out of the sand line, using it to, you know, add some humor into their everyday.
Yeah. So, yeah. Thanks, Jason. Thanks.
Awesome.
I guess.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for letting us know that we didn't look like what you thought we looked like. But
yeah, and if you have been hesitant to join the YouTube, check it out. All right, so let's do this. Part 2 of Attack of the Clones. We are starting at minute 33 and 46 seconds, and we're going to 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 16 seconds. And
not
we are
a
not
single
going
frame more. Not
That's
a
right.
single frame. That's it right there. Actually, if you're turning on Disney Plus to watch Attack of the Clones for this purpose, it already knows. You're not even going to be able to make it past that point anyway. So don't worry about it.
We have a deal with Lucasfilm. So we start off after the Dex Diner conversation into the Jedi archives, and Obi-Wan is staring at a bust of, I'm not sure if it's Count Dooku or not. I remember, like, as a kid thinking that was Count Dooku. And I remember reading somewhere that these busts are the Jedi of the last 20.
Okay.
Like the last 20 Jedi, in the sense of those are the Jedi that left the Jedi Order. Didn't follow the dark side necessarily. They just left the Jedi Order.
Right.
And they're
because that's what they assumed happened to Dooku.
Yes. Yeah.
They assumed he just went to go be a statesman. He just, you know, was giving up the Jedi life. Not that he was actually becoming a Sith Lord, you know?
Right. And maybe that's what his plan was, but then.
Yeah. As a child, I was always so confused about that. So I'm glad we got like Jedi Lost and stuff like that to really delve into some more of the details of what all went down. Because I was always like, y'all are all cool with it, with him being Count Dooku all out in the open. But they didn't know he was a Sith Lord. So
right. So Jocasta, the Jedi librarian, approaches Obi-Wan, and you immediately get the sense from her, you don't want to waste her time, right? Like, you do not want to waste her time at all. She's one of those old school teacher types, right? Of like, I'm not messing with her.
No, all business. No, is not taking no guff.
Now, we know from both Legends and canon, she can fight. Like, she is like a legit Jedi fighter. Like, Vader has a hard time with her.
Like,
he becomes Darth Vader.
People who know and have like seen her in, you know, in her prime and everything, they don't mess with Jocasta.
No, not at all. So Obi-Wan is there, and he says that he's looking for a planet called Kamino, and she's not familiar with it. So he sits down at a table, and on his computer, he tells her where it should be. And now the audio description describes that there are several galaxies on the screen, and like, I can't. That's not right. That can't be.
No, that would just be casually in an audio description. Yeah, it'd be. Surely they can't just have multiple galaxies charted out, right? Like, the unknown regions are called that for a reason, right?
Like, wait a second. You're going outside the galaxy to other galaxies, but you won't explore the unknown regions?
Of your own?
Like, I know that there's like all these black holes and stuff kind of preventing you from navigating very safely, but still,
Yeah.
I don't like that. I'm going to pretend that's not a thing, that they are even able to get outside their galaxy. I do not like that idea.
Yeah. If it is, it's a thing like how we've actually explored more of our solar system than we have our ocean.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
just like percentage wise.
Still
So
don't
I mean,
like it.
maybe it's not entirely off base. Maybe there's just something about specific areas that are hard, you know?
Well, the thing is, too, when you think of Empire Strikes Back, at the end, it kind of looks like they're outside the galaxy, right? When they're looking on everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
But then, like, I've also heard people say it's the Rishi Maze, which they mention in this, that's the Rishi Maze. It almost looks like a mini galaxy within the galaxy. So that's kind of how they've explained it away.
Mm.
In terms of, I guess, what's on this screen and then what's in the Empire Strikes Back as well. But yeah, I don't like that. I know that in the Legends material, basically there was like it was impossible to leave the galaxy. That people had tried before, but they couldn't leave because there's like something kind of stopping them, and we're unsure what that was. But the Yuzon Vong found a way in from a different galaxy. So anyways, I'm going to keep
You're
going.
waiting. You're so ready for the Vong to make their way into canon.
I am. I love the Vong. And I wish that episode 10, let's go. Man, that would be great villains besides the Sith or dark side users. I mean, come on. So anyways, they can't find Kamino. And so because they can't find it, Jocasta Nu says it just doesn't exist.
It's
like
not
if
Jedi Archives. Doesn't exist. There's there's a saying in my family that's, if it's not at the Dollar General, I reckon you don't need it. Which is not accurate, but it is a saying.
That's amazing. I like that saying. So George Lucas's son interrupts, and she leaves to help George Lucas's son, who's the little Jedi Padawan, which we see get murdered in episode 3 in Bell Organa.
Yeah, really rough. That's wild.
Yeah.
He had complete creative control over that.
I'm sure his name's Jet, right? Jet Lucas.
Yeah. That's because I think, or maybe it's Dexter. I know Jetster Dexter gets his name from, or Dexter Jetster. What's Dexter?
It's Dexter Jetster.
Okay,
Jetster.
Got it. He gets his name from George Lucas's son, one way or another.
Yeah, I think that's Jet. So she goes and helps him, and Obi-Wan's just there pondering, and then we switch to a scene of the refuge transport ship, and R2-D2 is getting some food from another droid that says, "Hey, no droids," which the droid bias is there before the Clone Wars, which is interesting.
Yeah,
to me,
these people are just bigots, I guess.
But it's another droid that says it, which is
well, I mean, they're following the orders of the establishment owners.
That's right. So R2 serves Anakin and Padme some food. I wrote Obi-Wan in my notes.
Wait, does that mean Dexter is droidist? Because I'm assuming he would be setting those rules.
Well, no, this is on the refugee ship.
Oh, so, I'm got my mind. Got so across.
Right. So it's Anakin and Padme on the refugee ship, and R2 serving them some food, and they discuss what specifically Jedi are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, which is kind of like a weird conversation, I guess, in terms of like, I guess maybe Padme's testing the waters.
Like exploratory conversation is how I'd put that.
So what can you do? And basically Anakin has found a loophole in like compassion. He says, hey, because of compassion, we're encouraged for compassion. That means I can totally love you.
Yeah.
Padme. I mean, that's basically what he says.
It's like who was in a book recently, a Jedi was like, look, we can't have emotional attachments.
Yeah.
Nothing else about anything. Actually, the non-emotional sides of attachment.
Kevin Scott brought that up. Writer of Jedi Lost.
Jedi Lost, yeah.
He brought that up basically of, hey, I mean, as long as they're not emotionally attached, Jedi can,
Yeah. eyebrows. just
Corky Crease.
Children.
He reminds her that he dreams about Padme all the time, and she just kind of stares at him. And then we switch the scene again. Like, there's a lot of back and forth between Anakin and Padme, and then what Obi-Wan is doing, and it's like a lot of quick back and forths. And so, I mean, it's cool, but I mean, it's quick.
Yeah.
So Obi-Wan shows up to Yoda, and Yoda is giving some younglings some lightsaber training. They have their visors on and their egg.
Lost you, Alex.
Oh,
are you back?
Yeah,
I lost you.
I think I just popped out for a second.
Stalled out for a second, but I think we're rolling now.
So yeah, Yoda is giving some
This is
younglings.
our first interruption. Everyone, congratulate us on our first interruption in the new format. It took us 4 recordings, so that's not too bad. That's not too bad.
I honestly thought it was going to happen during the live stream, but it didn't. That would have been bad.
Yeah.
So Yoda is giving some lightsaber training to these kids. I mean, they look like they're 4 years old, 5 maybe. And Obi-Wan interrupts the lesson. And now imagine being the kid who's absolutely just screwing up everything Yoda is teaching. And in walks Obi-Wan. I always loved that moment as a kid whenever my teacher got interrupted during like a math lesson, that I just was like, I don't get this at all.
Saved by the Bell kind of thing.
Saved by the Bell. That's exactly right. What I also like about this scene a lot is we see a bit of Empire Yoda in this scene. He's playful.
Yeah. He has a little bit of there's a whimsy to him.
Yeah. And
this movie in particular goes really hard on Yoda as a lightsaber user for no reason to me.
Just because it's cool.
Yeah, I'm like he's still doing the whole like, you're not supposed to see, you're relying on the Force for this. There's a lesson beneath the lesson, but he is on the surface teaching lightsaber training. Weird. Just kind of weird,
Well, I mean, but remember Obi-Wan when he tells Luke that he's like a great warrior. So like, I guess George was thinking we've got to see him be a warrior at some point.
To me, I always just imagined Force stuff. He's just really good at Force stuff, I feel like Yoda should be above a lightsaber, if that makes sense.
Yes, I get what you're saying for sure. I would like both ways. It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. You remember those commercials when episode 2 was coming out? It was like Yoda Man, like you're the man, but it was Yoda Man.
No.
Yeah, look that up after this. It's something.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a Google.
Yeah. So Obi-Wan is asking Yoda where Kamino could be, and Yoda just makes fun of him in front of all the children. And then with the help of the kids, Obi-Wan brings up the star map and points to the spot where Kamino should be. Okay, why not just investigate that area?
Go there?
Why did you have to go and embarrass yourself in front of a bunch of 4-year-olds?
Like, y'all are hop skipping around the galaxy at a moment's notice all the time. Like, it's not like it's not like it would be a month-long time investment to go there and come back, right? Like, maybe. Like, that's an afternoon, I feel like. With hyperdrives, like, you're right there.
Yeah. So a kid says that someone probably erased it from the archive memory, and Yoda confirms this and then states the obvious: go to that spot, you idiot. He doesn't say it like that. He says it backwards. Idiot, you are.
It's a Dora the Explorer moment when they finally say what we've been shouting at the screen the whole time.
Right.
It's right behind you.
Right. And so as they're leaving the little training area, they discuss who could do something like this. And Yoda confirms that only a Jedi could erase these files. And this is where it starts to get confusing in terms of this movie.
There's a plot afoot.
There is a plot afoot, but it doesn't make any sense.
Are particularly vague.
Oh, and it's so frustrating. So then we switch to a scene of the space bus coming from space into Naboo. to a cliffside docking port. And I just love Naboo. Naboo looks awesome. Like, if I could live anywhere in the Star Wars galaxy, I'm living at Naboo.
I mean, you could just move to Italy.
Nah.
It's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah. But does Italy elect their queens? No.
No.
Which is a weird thing. I guess like they're doing
It's
the
weird
game
to keep the title queen because I feel like there's
when it's
inherently
democracy.
like a dynastic element to that, right?
Yeah. It is weird.
Yeah. And they also like don't have, it's not like they have lifetime reigns either.
No, like she even mentions in like this scene in just a second that she served like 2 terms, like a president.
Right.
And she's 14.
That's all. That also just seems like a bad call.
Yeah,
right?
I work with middle schoolers.
Right.
I don't think that, I mean, maybe Naboo's different. I don't know.
They must be built different over there because it's, I mean, the one person who was able to rule the entire galaxy did come from Naboo. So
That's true. That's true. So Anakin is carrying their luggage as Padme discusses whether or not she should have been queen at so young. So she's kind of asking these same questions of like, maybe I was a little too young to be queen, but hey, I was elected. I served my 2 terms. And then the current queen asked her to serve as senator. She's kind of giving some exposition to the audience as, you know.
Yeah, because it's the prequels and that's how we learn things.
So inside the palace, we are introduced back to our main man, what's his name? Sio Babel?
Sifo Divas?
No,
What?
Sio Babel. That it can only mean one thing. Invasion.
Oh, yeah. Dude, that guy's incredible.
He's my favorite.
Oh, he's so good. It can only mean one thing: invasion. Really? I could think of several other scenarios. That's Phantom Menace, though. We digress.
Anytime you can't make it onto like a live stream, that's what I'm going to say. It can only mean one thing.
Invasion.
Mac is gone. He's been invaded. He's the best. Anyways, he states that the situation of the galaxy is basically it's unfathomable what they're going through. There hasn't been a full-scale war since the formation of the Republic. So once again, that's a direct shot to the Legends material at the time.
Yeah.
So there has to be 3 different republics, right? There was the old Republic, there's this Republic, and then there's the new Republic.
Yeah, there's got to be 3 separate. Unless there's just a way that it's the same Republic, but they delineate ages of it, if that makes sense.
Sure.
But, obviously the New Republic is a completely different government. It seems like it would have to be that way with the Old Republic as well.
Yeah. In my mind, the Old Republic fell in the Sith Wars, and there was a long time there was no central government.
Right.
And then they started it back up once the Sith were defeated.
Right. Because they still refer to the Old Republic in addition to the High Republic now.
Right.
Which the High Republic is still this Republic.
Yeah. It's confusing. But remember in episode 3, Palpatine says once more the Sith shall rule the galaxy. So at some point
have happened at some point.
And I'm thinking they probably, so Old Republic fell, Sith rule, they're defeated, then this Republic is established 1,000 years before this movie.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's when Darth Bane was doing his thing.
Yep. And that's a lot of legwork to be done in these few lines here.
That is a lot of legwork. So yeah, they're discussing basically the situation with the new queen, and the queen asks if the separatists can be talked into coming back to the Republic. She's just kind of asking Padme that, and Padme says that's unlikely, and that they'll probably turn to the Trade Federation and the Commerce Guild. And it's really interesting to look at how the Republic isn't perfect, but they all believe in the ideals still, right? Like they all kind of know, like, hey, we are not what we used to be like in the High Republic age. That's for sure. But they still believe in it. And Queen Jimala says, the day we stop believing in democracy can work is the day we lose it. So I guess they stopped believing in it.
I think there's a whole lot to be said here about the real world and how things can be crumbling and have already gone bad before people are realizing that, if that makes sense, and they're still bought into the old dream, you know.
Absolutely. And that's the thing I think that the prequels do really well in telling that story. It's like when people become selfish and greedy and stop caring about others, that's when you lose everything.
Right.
You know, like that's,
when the
yeah.
Jedi, who are supposed to be kind of the moral standard, right?
Right.
They're sort of like an elevated, we look to these people for our for guidance and like our you know, wisdom and our morality. And like when they start being like, you know, kind of losing the plot, like it's representative, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So they switched to talking about Padme's safety, and Invasion Man asks Anakin's opinion and calls him Master Jedi, and Padme immediately interrupts and says he's just a Padawan, LOL. Anakin gets very upset and says that, wait a second, I'm in charge of security here, my lady. And Padme says, bro, you don't even know this place. I do. Shut up and sit down.
You don't go here.
Yeah, you don't even live here. So he's basically like, you're right. You're right. And then we switch to another scene. A red Jedi starfighter emerges from hyperspace, and it's connected to a hyperspace ring. And those things are so cool.
Yes, I love that. Like the Jedi starfighters are like race cars, and they have their trailer, their big like semi that takes them to the track. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's pretty cool.
And it's interesting too that the Jedi starfighter is basically a mini Star Destroyer. It's the same shape. You know?
I do really like how like design wise they seeded all of the like the shapes and general forms, you know, because like even if you look at the you've got the X-wing in the I can't remember the letters.
It's like
the Arc fighter.
Yes, it's 170. I know the number. I don't remember.
Right.
Yeah.
You have the same general form factor of a TIE fighter showing up on the Separatist side a lot, or like the back of Darth Maul's ship, you know.
Mm-hmm. And it's basically, I mean, I guess it goes to the Last Jedi's point with DJ of like, hey, they're building things for both sides here.
Yeah.
You know, like Sinar is the people who build the TIE fighters and Darth Maul's ship and stuff, and they're supplying both sides. It's an industry here.
Right.
So anyways,
had before that.
Right.
That doesn't seem familiar at all.
I know. So it's connected to hyperspace ring, which is really cool. By the way, I just finished the last book of the Alphabet Squadron, and the bad guy Soren Keys is like connecting his TIE fighters to these hyperspace rings.
Yeah, that's cool. I gotta get caught up on that. I love that series.
I think it's my favorite of the new canon after finishing the last one.
Yeah.
So good. Anyways, so he easily finds Kamino. Again, he could have just went there instead of embarrassing himself in front of 4-year-olds.
He didn't even ask directions anywhere. Just right there.
Yeah, I mean, he goes directly to it, and he swoops down to the stormy planet, and he lowers onto a landing pad and just enters the building without anyone like contacting him, stopping him. And I don't know.
Kaminoan.
Yeah. Her name's Tan Wee.
Yeah.
And she greets Obi-Wan as a master Jedi and says that the prime minister has been expecting him. And after all these years, they thought they weren't coming.
And then I love how quickly he settles into, of course I'm here.
It's me. Which Obi-Wan is the biggest liar of maybe Star Wars. So it's like good to see him just naturally fall into lying.
He really is, man. The truth is the truth is a tool to be wielded by Ben Kenobi.
I love it when he's like, that's good news.
Yeah. That's why I'm here.
Yep, exactly. So they enter into a scary white room with spoon seats, and Prime Minister
they look exactly like the spoons you use to eat wonton soup.
Like a ladle. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about. Prime Minister Lama Su greets him and informs him that everything is on schedule, and Obi-Wan is just playing along, and Lama Su announces that they have 200,000 units ready with 1 million more well on the way. And then he mentioned Sifo Dyas, and this is where Obi-Wan is confused because
Viewers are confused.
confused.
We've never met this person before.
Who?
I don't know her.
Right. So Obi-Wan is confused that Sifo Dyas is brought up because he was killed almost 10 years ago, and they built an army for him. This introduces one of the most confusing plot elements, I think, in all of Star Wars. Like, none of this still, they even try to explain this in the Clone Wars and Jedi Lost. Still doesn't really make sense.
No, it's never been successfully retconned.
No, because we still haven't got the scene of like Sifo Dyas going to Kamino and saying, build me a clone army. We still haven't seen that scene.
Right.
We've seen everything around it.
And how much easier if they were just like, oh, a Jedi named Sidious ordered them, right? They're already aware of Darth Sidious. That wouldn't be any new information.
Right.
Like, they already know.
Wait a second.
They'd be like, oh.
Which, I mean, and how much better would that conflict be, though, too? Because then the Jedi are like,
need
hey,
the army still.
Exactly. We're like
And
using this army that a Sith Lord built.
Right. And you can actually, the big moral dilemma there, you can seed that earlier and have characters wrestle with that instead of just all of a sudden Order 66. And then it's like, oh, now there's problems, you know?
Right.
You could have built that up.
Yeah, because then like always in the back of the Jedi's mind is like, I don't know if I can trust these guys.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So Lama Su says that they are creating a clone army for the Republic, of course. And then Lama Su says that he will show Obi-Wan their progress, and Obi-Wan just decides he's going to play along and check this clone army out. And then we switch back to Naboo, and Anakin and Padme arrive to Padme's summer house on a gondola, which looks straight from Disney World. Mm-hmm. And they get out and they walk across the terrace and come to a stop at a railing. And Padme is describing her childhood of how they used to swim to a nearby island and lay in the sand, prompting maybe one of the greatest lines ever written. Anakin says, I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating. And it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. I feel that. I understand. Like,
I agree.
As over the top of a line as it is, I totally agree. I feel that in my core.
I don't think this part of the line should be made fun of. I think it's the next part of the line where it's not actually ended. That's the part that should be made fun of, because he doesn't stop. He says, but not like you. You're everything soft and smooth.
You are sugar, spice, and everything nice.
And then he awkwardly is touching her back with the back of like
it's creepy. Oh man, he is such a creep in this movie.
Just then they kiss.
Yeah.
And let's just say this. Yes, this scene is off the charts cringy. John Williams is absolutely killing it though with the music.
Across the Stars is just
beautiful. It's iconic.
Yeah, it is a gorgeous theme. Padme and Anakin's love theme it stands alone. It's incredible.
It's so good. It's so good. So Padme realizes what she's doing and pulls away from him, declaring she shouldn't have done that. And Anakin apologizes and looks away confused. And my 12-year-old self is also confused at what is happening. Like, wait a second, I did not expect this in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then we switch back to Kamino. In a glass walkway, we see thousands of incubation tubes with little clones inside. And Obi-Wan is walking with Lama Su as he explains the cloning process. Clones can think creatively, so that makes them way better than droids, because they're humans. Shows him
look at that, they're sentient.
yeah.
Even though some of the droids are ? If
you don't wipe their memory, I think they can gain sentience.
Maybe that's it.
That's why you got to always wipe their memory.
Or don't, because that's murder.
Right, because R2's memory is not wiped ever.
No, he just he can't talk verbally. If he ever wanted to write anything down with his little computer thing, though, it'd be over for everybody. He'd be like, "Look, y'all, it's Palpatine. He's Sidious. Like, I've put it together. Everything is in my memory banks."
R2 is a fan of just watching people like figure things out. That's
Do you
what
know
R2's into.
he does? He has so much knowledge that he could have just like he could have been like,
told Luke
"Oh,
everything."
Luke, yeah, that's your dad, bro." Like,
Yeah, Ben Kenobi is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Don't be fooled. Darth Vader is your dad. Padme was your mom. Yeah, Leia is your sister. He knows it all,
right.
but he chooses not to tell anybody.
Nope.
That's hurtful.
Like, I'm just gonna observe. I'm really more of an observer, except he does stuff all the time too. It's just not using any previously garnered information.
Yep. So Lama Su, again, is explaining clones can think creatively way better than droids. Shows him a group that was created 5 years ago, but they look like they're 10. And he explains that their growth has also been accelerated. And Lama Su mentions how they are totally obedient and they take any order without question. That line right there should have been enough for us. We didn't need the inhibitor chips in the Clone Wars series, in my opinion.
I agree. I actually think that it's a crutch a little bit because like I would have and I understand that there's
It's
a limited
show,
it's a kid show. There's a limited amount of screen time to be able to do this and everything. Imagine if like they had just like built all those relationships over the course of the show and then all the clones still chose duty over their companions and then like their friends. Like I feel like that would have been more devastating for everybody involved, right?
Absolutely. Like, because then you get the fallout of the clones of like realizing, why did I do that? It's almost like they were brainwashed instead of like something controlling them to make them do it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like if it came about because of their own agency and their own choices, like just how much more impactful would that have been? You know?
Yeah. And like, I get it because the Clone Wars cartoon, you don't want to see your favorite clone gun down your Jedi. Like, but it's almost like it takes away their free will in that moment and they have to do it. I don't like that though.
Yeah. I mean,
because it's like a droid.
Right. Again, I said like I get it. I understand.
Yeah, I get it, but
why they went that route, but just there were some possibilities too if you went a different route, you know.
Absolutely. So Obi-Wan asks who the original host is, and he says it's a bounty hunter named Jango Fett. Here we go.
And this is the whole reason. This is like getting into the whole reason we're doing this. This is what brings us here today.
Exactly. So while he's well paid, he asks for something else, an unaltered clone for himself, pure genetic replication, no tampering, to make it more docile and no growth acceleration.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's important to remember. So they make it outside and they see thousands of clone troopers. And while I thought clones would be something different as a kid, it was cool to see, oh, these are like stormtroopers, but they're not yet.
Yeah.
So, okay. Did you ever, like when you were a kid, did you think the clones would be something else than what they were in Attack of the Clones? I know you're a little younger than me, so maybe you didn't think about it as much, but
yeah, I didn't have too much. I was still, when Attack of the Clones came out, I was 7. So I still didn't have like, I wasn't reasoning about this movie a lot, right?
Yeah.
I did though, like in the original trilogy, watching that as a really small child all the time, I did always wonder what the Clone Wars meant. And like, because I didn't really understand even what like the real life concept of cloning is, right, at that point. Right. So I was just like, yeah, what is that? I figured they'd be fighting the clones, which I think that's where what everybody thought, right?
Yeah,
so
okay. So that's
great way
to
turn that on its head, you know.
I thought the clones would be bad guys.
Right. The Clone Wars sounds like you're fighting, like, because like the Mandalorian Wars is when the Jedis fought the Jedi.
Right.
The Jedi fought the Mandalorians, right?
Right.
So, you know.
So, and it almost sounds like the Crusade Wars, you know, so it's like a series of battles and wars instead of like one war.
Yeah.
Right. Not the Clone War, but it's like, hey, there's more clones now. We got to go deal with these guys and stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think honestly that could have worked. That whole idea could have worked in the sense of the prequels, in terms of you've got these clones that are like all throughout the galaxy causing chaos. Maybe they were cloning Jedi and people couldn't trust anyone anymore. People start to lose faith in the Jedi. And then you get stormtroopers showing up to bring order to the galaxy, right? Like the First Order was trying to do in the sequel trilogy. You kind of get that sense of like, hey, we'll clean this up. We'll fix this for you. That type of thing. So that's always what I imagined as a kid. What's really cool is like originally in Empire Strikes Back, George Lucas was thinking that Lando Calrissian was a clone. Like he was when we're talking about the Clone Wars, he's one of the clones because he's like perfect, like genetically, like he looks perfect. That type of thing. He
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lando. I wish there were more Landos. That would be awesome.
Like, I wish I could be a Lando.
You old pirate. All right. So we switched to Han Solo. We switch back to Naboo, and Anakin and Padme are having a picnic, and Padme tells Anakin about a boy she had a crush on, and Anakin immediately gets jealous. And then Padme mentions how he doesn't really like politicians at all. And we get more talk about how government works or how it doesn't work. And yes, this back and forth dialogue seems a little elementary, but I actually think that's good because remember, Star Wars is for kids.
It's one of the most foundational lines coming up. So when Anakin's talking about what if there was just one person, like if I was in control of the galaxy, if I could just swoop in and save the galaxy, like I swoop in and save everyone I care about, right? Yep. Things would be better.
Yep.
Which is obviously incorrect.
Right.
And I think that setting that up as a motivation, as like it's one of the few things that contribute to his fall being more believable, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's easy to understand how Anakin could be okay with the Empire from this scene.
Right. Yeah. It's because he's trying to save the world is what he's trying to do. And so if that means that that's the route he has to go to where he has enough power to where he can just swoop in and do it, then that's what has to happen.
Yeah, because he's, from his perspective, is like, hey, trust me, I'm good. I'll do what's right.
Right.
Yeah. So Padme calls him on this, and all he has to do is smile, and she's in love. And then we cut to a field, and Anakin rides a big pear-shaped cow, and he falls off of it, and it runs over him. And Padme races to him, see if he's okay, and he's laughing when she gets there, and they roll through the grass, and she lands on top of him. And this is what love looks like, Mac. This is what I learned what love looks like.
I'm like, this is what an afternoon when you're in looks like.
So we switch back to Kamino, and Obi-Wan is taken outside an apartment, and the door opens, and a young Boba Fett is there to greet them.
Yeah, and this is the whole reason we're doing it.
That's right. And Tanwi asks if they can see his father, and Boba glares at Obi-Wan and then turns to call for his father. So like immediately we get the sense from Boba, like he's an angry kid, right?
Yeah.
Like, or he's not trustful of anyone at all.
He's automatically on guard. He has lived a life thus far where he has already seen the galaxy's dangers, and he's fully prepared to take them on.
And he's just 10.
Right. And fully prepared as in he's determined to take them on, not that he's actually prepared for them, but
right.
Because we see that later in Clone Wars. Yeah, but just getting it. It was always weird. My parents really had to draw the lines for me when I was a kid, being like, that kid is this green guy in the original trilogy. And I was like, I don't think so.
No, he's not.
I don't think so. Like, I never had as hard of a time buying that little Anakin was going to be Darth Vader than like I had a way harder time buying that little Boba was going to be older Boba.
Because you've always loved Boba Fett, right?
Yeah, I mean, and even when Jango came on the scene, he was my guy. When we were playing Star Wars in the neighborhood, I was always Jango if I wasn't like Anakin or Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And then if we were playing Legos, I had the little Jango minifig when it first came out. I begged for the Slave One Lego set and everything.
Yeah.
Like he was my dude.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you just had like, that kid can't become Boba Fett. That just doesn't make sense to me.
I was like, he's not cool enough. Like,
oh yeah. He's not wearing armor.
Right. Like, where's his helmet then? If he's Boba Fett,
if he were in the Children of the Watch, he would be wearing his armor and his helmet.
That's true.
So they enter a very stark room, and Jango approaches. Behind him in another room, you can see his Mandalorian armor sitting on the floor. And Din would be so mad at that. Man, so would the armor.
Yep.
And we interviewed her, Emily Swallow. You can find that on your podcast feed. So Tanwi introduces Obi-Wan to Jango, and Obi-Wan says he must be so proud of the clones. And Jango says the line, "I'm just a simple man trying to make his way in the universe." And a version of this line is repeated in the second season of The Mandalorian when we get to see Boba in all his glory. But they changed the line from universe to galaxy, which I like better.
Yeah. I mean, I like galaxy because it's specific to, we always speak in terms of a galaxy far, far away. What a good line though for Jango. Like that just absolutely sums up what he's about. Like it doesn't get into specifics, but he is number one. He's looking out for number one. He's just a man trying to make his way. But he doesn't have a lofty goal. He's just trying to take care of himself,
That's right.
And I think that's a cool place to start Boba coming from, like being raised in that philosophy, whereas we see maybe a little bit of a character shift in The Mandalorian. So
yes. Yeah, and that's what I really like about what they've done with Boba and The Mandalorian, which I'm really excited for the Book of Boba Fett, right? Because like we are seeing that character grow and change. He's not static, or he's not static. He's not staying the same the whole time, right? Like he's growing, he's changing. So Obi-Wan asks if he's ever made his way to Coruscant, and the game begins. And Boba's watching very carefully. You get the sense that Boba, like, he watches his dad like Omega watches Hunter in The Bad Batch. Like, he copies everything that his dad does. You can tell from just Boba watching Jango, he idolizes Jango. Right?
There's a weird dynamic there.
Yeah.
He is Jango-ish. He's fully genetically Jango, but then he's obviously his own self too. Like I can't imagine growing up with that dynamic, like as your only family dynamic.
Imagine being Jango. Say you clone yourself and then you're gonna raise yourself. That's crazy.
Yeah, I guess you like already know what to look out for, like where all the pitfalls are.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But then, so much of who we are is determined by environment and everything too. So
right. Exactly. Which is why you get different accents in the clones and stuff in the Clone Wars, right? Because they're not, they're not all going to have Jango's accent because they're exposed to different things. Yeah, you're a little blurry.
I'm trying to fix the focus here. It's okay. I've got a bunch of moving boxes in the background as my background today because I am in the process of leaving my house. And
if you want to support us on Patreon, patreon.com/The Mandalorian Watch, we'll be able to get some brand new cameras that have better depth perception and autofocus.
Stay in focus.
$2 a month for extra bonus episodes. We do bonus commentary episodes, bonus review episodes. This month, we're reading the Republic Commando book that goes over a lot of Mandalorian stuff. It's Legends, but it's a lot of, I think we get informed a lot about Mandalorian stuff. So that's pretty fun. So anyways, all this happens. Obi-Wan mentions how he must know Sifo Dyas because Sifo Dyas ordered the clones. And before he answers Obi-Wan, he speaks to Boba and Mandoa, which is the Mandalorian language.
Yep.
And Boba obeys his father and goes to shut the door with the armor inside. I think that one line there always was like when they tried in the Clone Wars to be like, no, Jango and Boba aren't Mandalorian. Well, why are they speaking Mandoa if they're not Mandalorian?
And like, yeah, it'll be a really interesting. I hope we get into that. And like, I hope they give the characters enough of attention. Like maybe like they feel like they don't quite fit the bill to be considered Mandalorian and stuff. And then I hope something happens where, Boba feels like he earns that title, like maybe something with Din or, who knows. But the fact that that's been such a real world piece of contention it's nice that they're kind of giving it a narrative ending, possibly.
Absolutely. So Boba obeys his father and goes to shut the door immediately because the armor's inside there. And Jango says he doesn't know who Sifo Dyas is. He was hired by a man named Tyrannus on one of the moons of Bogdan. Oh, there you're back.
Yeah.
And so there's an awkward silence between them. And you get the sense that Boba is just picking up all the cues from his dad, like I said. And once they exit, Boba turns to his father and kind of gives him a look. And Jango decides it's time for them to leave.
Yep.
And then we cut to maybe the most cringy part of the entire Star Wars saga, I think. Anakin and Padme are eating, and she's about to eat a pear with a knife and fork, which I guess that's something rich people do. I don't.
Just easily manageable fruit that you can just palm with one hand, eating it with a fork and knife. Yeah.
But instead, Anakin lifts it with the Force and he cuts it for her, and she takes a bite off it. It's weird. Anyways, then we switch to even weirder scene where they're in a very dark room with a fire lit. Like, what were they planning here? Like, what did they think would happen in a situation like this?
Right. Like, why, like, what important job of being Padme's security detail is Anakin? Like, what part of his role is he fulfilling in this moment?
That's a great question, because they really set themselves up from this situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got to real quick tell a quick story that happened in high school.
I love this story.
I don't know if I've told this on the podcast before.
I think it's on the internet somewhere. I don't think I don't think under this podcast though.
So it was like this time of the year, and I was in high school. I think it's like my senior year maybe, and it was right after finals, and the teacher put on Attack of the Clones while we're just kind of hanging out after the test or whatever. And it's on across all the schools. It's like the one channel thing. And there's this guy sitting next to me. I hope he's not watching this or listening to this. And I noticed during this scene, he is furiously writing, like the way I take notes for these things. He is doing this. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? He's like, nothing. And I'm like, are you writing his lines down? What for? I'm going to use them on my future girlfriend. What? You're going to use Anakin Skywalker's lines from this movie to get a girlfriend? Watch me. I wrote all these lines down so we can kind of experience this together. Imagine being a high school girl. Someone writes you a note with these lines down, okay? Here we go. Anakin says, from the moment I met you all those years ago, not a day has gone by when I haven't thought of you. And now that I'm with you again, I'm in agony.
Wow.
The closer I get to you, the worse it gets. The thought of not being with you, I can't breathe. I'm haunted by the kiss that you should have never given me. So imagine being a high school girl getting that note. By the way, follow up, it worked. So good for him. Good for that guy.
Hey, he shot his shot.
It worked. Other follow up. Anakin says, I'm haunted by the kiss that you should have never given me. He's the one that kissed her.
That's your fault, dude.
He's like, is that gaslighting? Is that
kind of guy? Yes.
He's gaslighting Padme.
He's the worst kind of person to be in a relationship with. Like,
golly.
The number of red flags that were in what he just said alone, like,
it tells you everything.
Man.
So he goes on to say,
I'm a hard pass on that. Yeah, it's not working on me.
My heart is beating, hoping that kiss won't become a scar. You are in my very soul, tormenting me. Just imagine saying that to someone, number one. George Lucas, not the best dialogue writer, I think. Like, I get what he's trying to say, right? George Lucas I think the thing, it's called King syndrome. When you have nobody checking you anymore.
Yeah.
Like he had in the original trilogy, people kind of like, helping him with the dialogue stuff and the directing even at some points.
And
like
he
Irvin
didn't.
Kershner.
Yeah, and he didn't have more money than God to do whatever he wanted with. He had to innovate to be able to do what he did with the budget he had.
100%. And so like he had to make compromises somewhere, and that I feel like those compromises made like the original trilogy so good.
Yeah, that's where the genius comes out of. Like that's the
Exactly.
environment in which he is an absolute genius, is when there's limitations and when he can collaborate.
Right. And
if he's in a vacuum, it's rough.
Yeah, if you watch the episode 1 documentary where he's just like basically ripping through those like artists' pictures and stuff and just like drawing all over them, and you're just watching them like they're like, yeah, they're cringing like, oh, we didn't make copies of those. I'm not saying George is bad. It's just like he had nobody to check him anymore. No. Everybody was afraid to tell him no.
Yeah, like I am the biggest George Lucas apologist, but
yes, agreed.
But in that there's a environment in which he is very successful and an environment in which he's not.
Right.
So that's just, I mean, like what he excels at, he just doesn't get the opportunity to excel at when he has everything the way he wants, if that makes sense.
100%. So yeah, someone just clean up this dialogue would help. So Padme says that this won't work. She's a senator. He's a Jedi. Anakin says we could keep it a secret. And then Padme says, but we'd be living a lie. And they're like, yeah, we would be, but you're hot. And then we switch back to Kamino. Obi-Wan is leaving and he steps into the pouring rain and reports back to the Jedi Council. And back at the temple, Yoda and Mace Windu learn about the clone army and Jango Fett. And Obi-Wan mentions Sifo Dyas and they're confused. I'm confused. Everyone's confused. What?
Sifo Dyas, those words should never have graced the page of this script. Just ever.
Well, okay. So then they're like, okay, we never authorized this. Who is paying for this?
I'm assuming a deposit was put in, at least.
Dex said they love their pocketbooks, right? Who has this money? Sifo Dyas just charged the Jedi Council credit card and nobody checked? No, who is the bookkeeper for the Jedi Council?
Jocasta knew, I think. What if Jocasta's in on it? What if she's a plant? She's a Palpatine plant from the beginning.
I'm down for that. That would make more sense. Like, Sifo Dyas can just charge the Jedi Council and everyone's just like, they don't check it? They don't check their account?
Using his corporate travel card. He puts in his expense report. Jocasta knew, just checks the box, approves it, and nobody's
I'm going to need 2 million clones.
Right.
I'm going to need you to grow 2 million people for me. Here's
you
our
never know how exchange rates are. Like Coruscantian like Republic credits could just be so much stronger than whatever the Kaminoan currency is. Like the exchange rate could just be wild, so it wasn't even noticed. I don't know.
Then why doesn't everybody have a clone army?
I'm grasping at straws here.
I don't know. So they tell him to bring Jango back so that they can question him.
Donate to the Patreon, and Children of the Watch will have our own clone army. We're going to clone ourselves, and we'll just have new hosts that are just us, but different versions of us for every episode.
That'd actually be really helpful when we're doing like 5 shows a year. Actually, kind of like that idea.
Yeah.
So they want to bring Jango in so they can figure out this. And then Mace says once the transmission is over, it's time to inform the Senate that our ability to use the Force has diminished. And I feel like that's a huge thing, but we hardly ever focus on this line. And then Yoda mentions just casually that the Dark Lord of the Sith knows about that too. How?
How do you know that he knows about that?
Right. What has happened in 10 years here?
A lot of stuff off screen that we learned about through expository dialogue.
So we switch to Anakin having a nightmare about his mom, and he wakes up from it. And so he's meditating in the morning, and Padme comes out to see what he's doing, but is about to turn away, and he senses her presence, and he tells her of the nightmares. and he says that he's got to go to her. Like, hey, listen, I know I said I was going to protect you, but I've got to go to you.
I'm just trying to get it. I'm just trying to get my camera in focus.
Okay.
Do your thing. Do your thing. Sorry, y'all. I'm like waving my hands, trying to get my camera in focus on me. Alex, you keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great, buddy.
So she agrees to go with him, and then we switch to one of the coolest fight scenes in all of Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
This is an awesome fight scene.
Of course.
The first time we see a Mandalorian versus a Jedi, like, for real.
Yeah, and it's the first time that anybody without a lightsaber stands a chance against somebody with a lightsaber.
Yes.
Like, that's never happened before. This is it. This is the first time. Yeah. And that's because Jango's probably been training for this moment like his whole life. That's that's like why Mandalorian armor be the way that it is, you know?
Exactly. So Boba is in Slave One, and they basically team up on Obi-Wan. And for the first time, we see Obi-Wan just punching Beskar, which is great. Mm-hmm. He has a habit of doing that in the Clone Wars.
Fists of steel, just bare knuckling the metal helmets.
It's amazing. Jango almost dies because of his jetpack, which our jetpack theory, TM,
it holds,
still correct.
Yeah, it stands to this day. Haven't been proven wrong.
Nope. And forgetting that they're attached to each other, they both fall over the platform, and Jango extends like his knife, like blades in his gauntlet.
His Batman spikes.
It would be cool to see these again.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
I would love to see these again. And Jango detaches the cable and climbs back up while Obi-Wan jumps back on a lower platform. I'm not going to describe everything that happened in the fight.
It's a fight. You can watch it.
So he gets back up there, and Jango is already inside Slave One and takes off. And Obi-Wan throws a tracking beacon onto Slave One as it disappears.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut back to Tatooine, and Anakin and Padme arrive in Mos Espa and are pulled by a droid rickshaw, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And they stop at Watto's stand. He doesn't even have a shop anymore. He just has a stand. And he doesn't recognize Anakin at first, and he fixes a broken droid and proves that it's him and that he is Anakin. And then he says he's looking for Shmi Skywalker. And Watto says that he sold Shmi to a moisture farmer named Lars, and he freed her and he married her.
Yep. And there we get Lars.
Yeah. And I never imagined that whole relationship that way either. From the original trilogy.
Yeah, I thought it would just be like Anakin's brother or something. Like
a younger brother.
Like they grew up together.
Like Jesus was born first, but then he had younger brothers, right?
Right.
It's like that, but Anakin's evil.
He's just space Jesus.
Right. So that's what I always thought. Again, George Lucas gives us something different. So they're someplace on the other side of Mos Eisley, and Anakin wants to know exactly where they are. And then we have another scene switch where Slave One and the Jedi starfighter arrive outside of Geonosis. Mm-hmm. And Jango and Boba realize that Obi-Wan is following them. And then we get the greatest sound ever created when Jango releases the sonic charges.
Yes. It's incredible. Like the trailer for Inception wishes it could have the bombs of these. And there's like a chime bell quality to them that's hard to like vocalize as well.
Yeah.
There's like a clear note that rings out over this big
Yeah, it's the perfect sound.
It's so good. It's
Sound.
phenomenal. Yeah.
It's the silence before though that really gets it.
Yeah. I want a 21 sonic charge salute when I die. Is that fair?
That can be done.
Right.
that can be done. So Obi-Wan's following him, dodging all the things. He's a pretty good pilot for someone who hates flying.
Mm-hmm.
And they play a game of cat and mouse, basically chasing one another back and forth. And Slave One ends up behind Obi-Wan, and Boba yells, "Get him, Dad! Get him! Fire!" Boba's a violent kid.
He's bloodthirsty. I think Jango's probably like training that into him.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, even the way he's talking to him during this battle,
right?
Like he's like, watch this. Like, like
Yeah.
he's proud of like
I'm about
a
to
single
commit
dad
murder.
would be,
Yeah.
Yeah. Jango is just relentless, and then he fires a seeker missile at Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan lets out debris so that the missile hits it. I do want to point out that this kind of parallels Empire Strikes Back almost at the exact same moment when the Star Destroyer lets out debris and the Falcon slips by and the Slave One follows the Falcon.
Yep.
And this happens almost the exact same point in the movie. Ring theory.
It's poetry. It rhymes.
I've never heard anybody say that before. That's amazing. You're right.
I know. It's
is
an
like
original
poetry.
thought I just had.
Wow. They think Obi-Wan is dead, and then they descend down to the surface, passing by giant Federation ships, and it lands. Slave One does. And after a while, Obi-Wan follows and sees all the Federation ships and lands on a mountainside ledge. And then he gets out of his starfighter to follow. And that is the end of part 2.
That's it.
That's the end of part 2. Part 3 will pick up 1 hour, 11 minutes, 16 seconds, all the way to 1 hour, 42 minutes, and 42 seconds.
We at least got the introduction of our hero in this part. We have Boba, so now we're going to get into the stuff that happens.
Yeah, I mean, what is going to happen to Boba and what he experiences will forever alter his life course, right? Like everything that happens in this movie, he is still dealing with that when we see him in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to paint his thoughts on Mandalorians, on Jedi in a big way. There's all kinds of stuff that it's a very formative last half of a movie for Boba Fett.
Absolutely. Mimic, like the way we saw him mimic his dad in the apartment room, you do get the sense that there is some honor to Jango Fett, right? Or like that's probably where Boba gets that real deep-seated idea of honor that he has with Din when he's like, hey, I'm going to go help you find Grogu because that's the right thing to do. Like I'm going to see this through with you on this.
Right.
And we weren't sure when we were watching it in season if Boba was actually going to be a man of his word, and he was. Yeah,
we didn't know how that was going to go. So I think just like the events that happen in The Mandalorian season 2 definitely show that like he's come a long way, and from like especially where we see him in like Empire, right? Because there's not much that's honorable or anything about what he's doing there.
No.
All we know is he's just the most ruthless bounty hunter in the galaxy, which doesn't, just really ring of an honorable person, right?
No disintegrations.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, I feel like maybe he like had like the Sarlacc kind of took him out of that angry place a little bit.
Spiritual moment in the Sarlacc. Right. Yeah. Here's what's interesting.
Are they going to do Jonah with him? Are they going to do a Jonah arc?
Yes.
Star Wars loves their biblical parallels.
Yeah,
so.
I think so. Like the whale is the Sarlacc. Yeah.
Is the Sarlacc. Yeah.
Here's an interesting thought that I just had. If we do get flashbacks in the Book of Boba Fett, which I think we will, that line of no disintegrations, right? Darth Vader has worked with Boba Fett before. Obviously, Anakin kind of knows who he is, right? Because of Attack the Clones and all this situations and stuff and the Clone Wars. But what if Vader has hired Boba Fett to capture or kill Jedi before?
Interesting. So maybe Boba Fett kind of helped out with the purge a little bit.
Yep.
The motivation's certainly there.
Yeah. I hope we get some Boba in the Bad Batch. Have you watched any of the Bad Batch before we get out of here? Have you been able to watch it yet?
I started watching the first episode. I'm moving right now. Yeah. Literally, I'm about to get off this and go do moving stuff. So like,
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But yeah, so I tried to watch the first episode really late one time after I had kind of finished up, and I was like, maybe I'll watch the first episode before I went to bed. I fell asleep. Not because of anything with the show, but just because
exhausted. Moving's hard.
I got very little in the tank right now. So
absolutely. So like brought that up. That's good. So we won't have like the next episode next week because Mac is in the middle of moving. You know, we want to make sure he's all settled and stuff before recording part 3 of Attack of the Clones. So, kind of bear with us. Also, we got a while till December. So, you know, we're in no rush right now.
We're not in a rush.
But again, be following us on Twitter and Instagram at COT Watch because we might end up doing a live stream. Like if Mac is still busy or whatever, like maybe we can get someone on too and just hang out and
or
chat.
You never know when a trailer is going to drop and I'm going to drop everything I'm doing at the moment to talk about it anyway. You never know.
So be following us on those platforms so you don't miss anything. And we hope that you've enjoyed this episode. Remember to call into our voicemail hotline, which you can find in the show notes. And
one more time, that number is 205-259-6675. That's 205-259-6675.
Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. Children of the Watch, a Star Wars show. You can find us on YouTube and subscribe, like our videos, share the content, notification, whatever you do on YouTube. Just help us out. That's a good way to kind of help us out before we get to the Book of Boba Fett because we want to make sure there's a lot more people joining us and joining the fun when we break down our episodes. That's why we're doing this, you know, so we want to build a bigger audience for everybody. We're not abandoning the podcast. I know we've been mentioning the YouTube a lot. I think someone even kind of mentioned that in one of our reviews. Like, I hope it fails.
It's just going to keep happening. We're trying to get our footing over here. So
yeah, we're trying to build it up. Like when we get to the Book of Boba Fett, we're going, you know, it's going to be just like the podcast that you normally know. We're just trying to build an audience on YouTube, which, you know, is kind of a new audience for us. So kind of, you know, help us out there if you can.
Yeah, give us a like and a subscribe, hit the bell or punch it or whatever you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. This is a very fun part of Attack of the Clones.
This is a good one. There's a lot of good little moments, both famous and infamous in this part, you know?
Absolutely.
So, well, we'll be talking part 3 very soon. But until then, keep the watch.